Hey friends at home. Just want to let you know that Joe Ali is currently at the bank and won't be back until about 30 minutes from now. After which...
A 30-minute trip to the bank, huh?
That is correct. After which, we may or may not know if he will have time to join us.
Who's that in his office?
That would be his research assistant.
She's taking over while he's out?
Yeah, but what we could do is follow Matt DeCamp downstairs and ask him a few pointed questions.
After you. This is finally happening on your last day.
It's Matt DeCamp hiding under his desk.
This is your moment of glory, Matt.
So Matt, have a seat here if you don't mind.
Where's Joe?
This looks strangely like a jail cell.
Well, I take
It is a jail cell.
my shirt off so you can inspect my heart and my breathing. So Matt DeCamp.
Where's Joe?
So Joe thought the question was too hard and left the BI for good. So he
didn't just hide under his desk.
He resigned, unfortunately.
That's too bad.
So this is
It
a
is
make
a
it or
difficult
break it.
question.
You may get a faculty position, which was Joe's old position, as a research assistant. One of the greatest positions offered here at the BI for those who couldn't get assistant professorship. Am I allowed to
Sounds
say
good.
these things?
On your last day, apparently you can.
It's a little too controversial.
We'll edit.
Okay, don't show any of this to Jeremy. That's okay. For both of our sakes. Matt DeCamp, I sent you that question, and or you know the question.
Maybe it would help to repeat the question
The
for our
question.
listeners at home.
That is correct. I was planning on doing it. The question: what should the pay scale for physicians be based on? You know, you have people in Wall Street getting paid millions. You get teachers getting paid $10 an hour, and then physicians are getting paid somewhere between like $150 to maybe $1 million, depending on the specialty. Why is that? You know, I think it's justified to some extent. I guess I hinted at with the specialty, but I mean, what about people in like Goldman Sachs? They don't have much specialties.
Well, I think most people would acknowledge that the current pay structures in general do not necessarily reflect what you would think of as a reflection of social value, depending on one's view of social value, of course. You bring up an important point that physician salaries actually have a pretty wide spectrum, depending on specialty, with some salaries even being lower than what you mentioned, and others probably being higher.
Yeah. So I mean, you mentioned that it's not a reflection of societal value, yet it still happens. Then how can one say that this is technically then still not about social value?
Well, I may have misspoken. I was trying to clarify that it's not about, it's at least one vision of social value, which is arguably a more market-driven vision.
Yeah, where the business execs get the money and where things like education not really valued.
So one way of telling the story would be that it reflects a social value system that higher paid individuals contribute net positive benefits to the economy above and beyond their particular salary, and hence should be rewarded for the activities that they do.
So I guess here, in this case, then the economy is what's valued.
Contribution to the economy, sure.
Okay,
Or the value of the services provided.
So let me ask you this. Physicians, do you think there's a lot of physicians who want to go into medicine because the pay is so stable? And it's like no matter what, you will get paid well, and not many doctors are unemployed. There's always going to be a job for you because people are dying all the time and getting sick. Do you think then the pay should be a little less because we know that the demand for physicians is going to be very high, and that we can always employ somebody.
I think the data suggests over time that the pay has been getting relatively less, or at least not increasing as fast as other salaries if you look across the board at physicians. So maybe that's a reflection of it. Certainly with some of the healthcare reform changes, physician salaries could be different if groups become more integrated and more physicians become salaried rather than fee for service. So
some physicians are getting pissed that they're getting pissed that they don't get paid enough, and they think that their amount of schooling, the amount of knowledge that they know, or whatever, should correlate to whatever what they do, and they think that if you go into medicine, you don't do it for the pay because you get paid crap. But it's hard to make sense for somebody when they look at the salary and it's like, this guy's getting paid $200,000 and he's saying it's crap. How do we attempt to make sense of that?
Well, you bring up one important point, which is that
Only
cost
one.
of your first one.
Yeah.
The cost of education and the delay in earnings, do change the calculus somewhat, I think, for physicians. When you think about training programs that require 4 years of medical school, often sizable loans, additional 3 to 7 years of residency training, without some of the benefits that other people in, certainly with similar college educations, other benefits that they have, that leads some people to think that the salary should be higher for that reason, which is a different rationale than purely the services being provided.
I mean, okay, so do you think that do you think it has anything to do with being a physician, that there shouldn't be a relation to money, that physicians should be happy that they're getting paid anything at all to sustain themselves because what they're doing is somehow extremely beneficial and they're doing it for the sake of people? Like, people shouldn't go into medicine because,
I guess in an ideal world, everyone who did whatever their profession happened to be were doing it for that reason.
Yeah.
It could be that the supply-demand part of the equation that you mentioned at the beginning is why salaries have to be higher, to try to drag more people in to meet a social need.
Okay.
So you're going to get some people who are doing it for the reasons you described, and other people that maybe arguably do it more for financial reasons.
And do you think that in some way maybe affects clinical ethics on the ground, like the physicians who come in that are just like, I know I'm going to get paid well, I did it mainly because it was a security net for pay, et cetera, and then you have the physician that's like, I believe in the nobility of the profession, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if there's data on this, but based on, if there's data on this, or whether on speculation, does that somehow color their practice?
Well, on the one hand, I would say that the purpose of the medical education system, starting in medical school, arguably starting before in pre-medical curricula, is to develop a professional identity, professional ethos, professionalism among trainees that should work against that if it's done properly.
Yeah.
And if it's effective. On the other hand, we do know from data that physicians respond to financial incentives under fee-for-service and do more testing when it's in their interest, or do more procedures when it's in their financial interest, etc. So you could say that professionalism in education mitigates that, but probably will never be able to completely eliminate those incentives.
Well, thank you, Matt DeCamp, for joining us here on this great cubicle conversation that we're having here. For those of you at home, you may never see me again. I may be replaced by another Indian person. In the meantime, thank you, Matt DeCamp.
Thanks for coming to my cell.
I'll let you get back to literature reviews.